After 6 months of sailing through the balmy Caribbean islands, it is time to go. It's time to point Florence east for the first time on this 7-year circumnavigation. It's time to recross the North Atlantic Ocean, our 5th major ocean crossing.
We know it is not going to be easy. We are no longer in the trade winds. We will face headwinds, strong winds and calms in our bid to complete this ocean odyssey and return home to England.
Between us and England lie over 4,000 miles of open ocean sailing.
Thankfully, there are 2 safe havens where we can break our passage along the way, in Bermuda and then the Azores, before the final leg home to the British Isles.
We are Amy and Matt, and this is Florence, our home and safe haven upon the ocean. Together, we have sailed over 46,000 miles around the globe, on a 7-year voyage of discovery, and now it's time to sail back to where this journey began.
We're currently at the southern end of the Exumas in the Bahamas, which is obviously a beautiful place to be, but it is now fast approaching hurricane season. It's currently mid-May, but this is theoretically also the best time to sail from here in the Bahamas to Bermuda, because the jet stream at this time of year has theoretically moved north, and with it the bad systems that bring strong winds and big waves have theoretically also moved north with it.
However, the theory and reality with the weather models often don't match up, and we've actually been waiting here in the Bahamas for 3 weeks now for a suitable weather window to sail to Bermuda. Now, we've actually got ready to leave, got Florence completely prepared to leave twice now, and then cancelled our plans at the last minute on the day we were about to leave. And that's because the weather models aren't really very reliable 7 days out, especially in this part of the world, and they have been massively changing. So we were looking to set off with a nice downwind forecast that would take us all the way to Bermuda, and then just before we left, the forecast changed and said we were going to have 20 plus knots on the nose for 2 days before we arrived. And that's not great. Although Florence could cope with that, it's not very good for wear and tear on Florence, it's not very good for wear and tear on us, and it wouldn't be very much fun. So we've now got a forecast which looks okay to go. I mean, if we were right at the start of the season, we probably would choose not to take this forecast. We think we could wait for something better, but as Amy said, hurricane season is fast approaching, so although this forecast isn't ideal, we're going to take it, because although it's not ideal because it looks like we could run out of wind. It doesn't look like we could run into strong headwinds or anything dangerous. So we're going to have a bit of breeze at the start of the passage, and then in the middle of the passage it looks like the wind's going to go to nothing, and so we're going to have some very drifty conditions, but then hopefully it will fill back in and we'll have a good sail from there on to Bermuda. But of course that is out at the end of the weather model's prediction, and they are notoriously unreliable out that far.
So we've been getting Florence ready to go again. We actually keep her mostly ready to sail across an ocean at all times. But before we leave, there are a few things that we need to do. First of all, we need to jump over the side.
It's been over 2 years since we last hauled out in Seychelles back in the Indian Ocean, and our anti-foul is wearing out. In fact, in places we have none left. In hindsight, we should have hauled out in the southern Caribbean and replaced it, but we didn't. So now we have to jump in and scrub off all the seaweed every few weeks, and especially before an offshore passage. If we didn't do this, it would slow us down by up to 20%.
Next, we need to fill up with fresh water. We carry 500 litres on board, which lasts us for over a month. On average, we use 5 litres of fresh water per person per day when at sea. Thankfully here in Georgetown, there's a free drinking water tap on the dinghy dock, but it still takes several trips to ferry all the water out to Florence.
Whilst all that is going on, we've dug out all of our warm clothes and sleeping bags to give them an airing. We last used them when leaving Namibia at the start of our South Atlantic Ocean crossing. As we are now sailing north out of the tropics, we expect the temperatures to drop, especially when sailing at night.
Last but not least, we top up with fresh provisions. This bit is painful, as although you can buy almost anything you want here, the prices are eye-wateringly high. Thankfully, we still have plenty of long-life provisions left from our time in the French Caribbean islands, where food was relatively cheap, so we can get away with only buying a few fresh items here in the Bahamas.
With the last-minute items done, it's time to go. It is always an anxious time waiting for a weather window and making the decision of when to set off. But once the decision is made and we hoist the sails, we get a huge sense of relief. We are going. Now we just have to face whatever the weather sends our way. No more should we go or should we stay, just deal with it day by day.
It's a beautiful day to set off, sailing out through the reefs under full sail in calm waters.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, a bit of a wave. Okay, probably okay now.
Yeah.
Sailing upwind on a monohull means getting used to life on the lean. Although we have a gimbaled stove with fiddles to hold the pots and pans on, cooking at this angle is extremely challenging and actually dangerous. So I made some meals before we left that we can either heat up or have cold if the conditions are against lighting the stove. Trying to cook in these conditions is also highly likely to make me seasick. That's another reason for having meals prepared before we leave.
After dinner we tacked again and it was time to make our last preparation for the open ocean.
So we've been beating upwind in the nice calm waters in the lee of Long Island all day, and we've been sneaking up here to make use of it to shelter us from the open ocean swells. We're about to reach the point of Long Island and head out into the open North Atlantic Ocean, so we're expecting a bigger sea state there. And because we've been tacking lots up here, we've had our inner forestay off, which allows the genoa to just easily pass from side to side as we tack. Since we're now going out into the open ocean, we might want to use our staysail, so we're now going to put our inner forestay on, and we're doing it whilst we're in the nice, still in the lee of the island. We've just put a couple of extra reefs in the genoa to slow down and make it all nice and easy up here to do this job. The downside of doing this, of course, is that then when we've got the inner forestay on, when we next tack, we will have to furl the genoa completely, tack, and then unfurl it on the new side. And we've still got a few more tacks we need to do to clear Cat Island in the night tonight.
With the inner stay fitted, we can hank on our staysail, ready for the stronger winds we are expecting ahead. This sail is smaller and stronger than our genoa, designed primarily for sailing upwind in strong winds.
The inner forestay is also an extra stay to support the mast, so we usually fit it when sailing offshore, just in case the main forestay breaks.
With that done, we put a reef in the mainsail for the night, and I headed below to bed as we settled into our watch system. Although there are 2 of us on board, for the next week we will see very little of each other. Just an hour or 2 during the day when we are both awake, and short periods where we change over watches or work together on sail changes.
So this is the evening now of our third day at sea, and to be quite honest with you, yesterday was rubbish. We had quite a lot of wind and quite a short, steep sea state. Florence was bouncing over the waves. We were both feeling rubbish. I was head over the side feeding the fishes most of the afternoon. But only just today, this afternoon, felt like eating anything again. We've both been absolutely really tired. Been impossible to get any sleep. I think I've only had about 3 or 4 hours sleep in the whole voyage so far. So only just starting to feel normal again this afternoon. And we're going upwind. We're zigzagging to get to our destination. Bermuda's over there, not even going in the right direction. So yeah, yesterday was a bad day. Hopefully things will improve now.
Matt doesn't normally get seasick, and I think that was actually only the second time on this whole round the world voyage that Matt's actually physically been sick. I quite often feel pretty rubbish, but so often that I think I've kind of got used to that feeling. Matt, however, yesterday was really annoyed about the fact that he was feeling ill. I feel like we've both hopefully reached a turning point though. The first 3 days are always the hardest, especially when it's rough to start with. It's just so hard to physically move yourself around the boat and just manage doing day-to-day tasks like eating, using the bathroom, and even sleeping. So we've just been swapping between one of us being on deck, and then as soon as our watch is over, we have been straight down below and laid horizontally on the bunk, which is the most comfortable place to be when the boat is rolling around.
It's even impossible to hold the camera steady, even though it's calmed down now.
Oh, this is like a dream in comparison to how the sea state was yesterday. We were just being thrown around by the waves, and then every so often we'd like jump off the top of one and then just come crashing down. And it wasn't like we had too much sail area up. We were only doing 3.5 knots. It's just the sea state was horrendous.
I'm still exhausted, even just holding the camera up just now to film Amy talking. My arms are tired, and just being seasick just completely takes it all out of you. Unfortunately, I downloaded the latest weather forecast this afternoon, and the weather that we're expecting has deteriorated. We were expecting to have a little bit of upwind bouncing conditions, and then a bit of a wind hole where we might have to motor through, and then we were expecting to have downwind conditions on the other side of that wind hole. And the forecast I've just downloaded says, yes, we're going to have some upwind conditions. The wind hole, small wind hole we were expecting, is now a very large wind hole, which is going to take us a couple of days to get across according to one forecast. And then on the other side of that wind hole, we don't have nice downwind conditions. We have yet more bouncing upwind conditions to get to Bermuda. So I've no real idea what's going to happen, but the forecast keeps changing, and we've just got to point our bow as close as we can to the destination and keep going and hope it improves. Just had so many days of waves just breaking over the whole of the boat, spray going across the whole of the solar panels there, everything is covered in salt. So to keep them working well, it's one of the chores to rinse them off. but without using too much fresh water, because that's precious. These 2 solar panels have provided all of the power that we've used on Florence over the last 7 years. We've actually only plugged into shore power, I think, twice, and we've probably used the engine to charge the batteries when it's been a rainy day, maybe 8 or 9 times. And that was really only so we had enough power to run the laptops for editing. Actually, these 2 have given us plenty for living on, but it's never really enough. We do ration power, like when we're on a passage like this, there's nothing around us, there's no land to show on the chart plotter, so we turn the chart plotter off to save power overnight. So it would be nice to have a little bit more. Everybody always wants more power, bigger solar panels and bigger batteries, so maybe that's something we can do when we refit Florence.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. Well, this is the evening of day 4, and it's the first time since we left the shelter of Long Island behind that we've been able to stand up here on the bow without getting completely and utterly soaked. We've had waves going over the whole boat and soaking us in the cockpit as well. The promised wind shift that was going to have us heading straight towards Bermuda now has not materialised. It lifted us for a few hours and we were on a good course straight at where we wanted to go, but now the wind is coming directly from where we want to go, so we're having to zigzag up. I've just got to hope that the light winds stay enough wind that we can keep sailing and don't have to motor, and then unfortunately later on, the last couple of days in towards Bermuda, look like we're going to get some pretty strong headwinds, which is going to be really uncomfortable and unenjoyable again. So it's a bit of a mixed feelings on board really. We're kind of relieved that we've got these conditions now and we're going to enjoy them, but we're not looking forward to what's coming at the end of the trip. We've actually just done the washing up for the first time on the trip. It was building up because there was no way you could get yourself wedged in the galley well enough to do it until now. And since we've been feeling a bit ill, we haven't actually been eating that much, so thankfully we didn't generate too much washing up. After the last few days of bouncing around all over the place, this was a good opportunity to go up on the bow and to check everything. And the dinghy had moved a little bit, so we relashed her down ready for what comes a bit later.
What an awesome day of sailing we've had today. It has luckily rejuvenated both of us for ocean sailing, which is a good job because in a couple of days from now we have some really strong headwinds again. But today has been absolutely gorgeous. The sea state has flattened off. We've generally had somewhere between 10 and 15 knots of wind, which is absolutely perfect. The only trouble is that the wind is still dead on the nose, so we've been zigzagging all day. But the sea state easing off has made life so much easier on board. We've both been able to have a shower, have something to eat, and I brushed my hair for the first time, I think, in about 4 days. So we're both feeling a lot better and a lot less tired than we were. We both knew that this was not going to be an easy passage, and particularly those first couple of days with the headwinds that were forecast. But I think it hit us both really hard just how much we struggled. I haven't seen Matt that badly seasick in probably about 5 years. Mentally, it was a pretty big struggle because in the back of our minds, we both knew that this is just the start of our North Atlantic crossing. And actually, the next bit across the Azores is potentially even more difficult to get decent weather for because it's just a longer section. And it also has a pretty bad reputation. It's tough feeling like that and knowing that you've got the best part of a month of tough ocean sailing ahead of you and no real easy way out of it. But it's days like today that make all of that worthwhile. Today is just a fantastic day to be out on the water, and we're both really happy to be here.
Next time we enjoy calm conditions out on the open ocean, but there is no respite, and we have to use this time for repairs and to prepare for more bad weather ahead.
If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss an episode, and that's absolutely free.
We are usually a couple of months ahead of the videos in real time, and that means that right now we should be partway through our North Atlantic crossing, sailing Florence offshore from the Caribbean to England via a couple of islands on the way. If you'd like to see where we are in real time, then please join the crew over on Patreon to see the tracker map where we post a daily update.
As always, we want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the making of these videos, and especially our star patrons.